Well, I'll just thank everyone for joining. I just wanted to, Paul's given me the privilege of doing the introductions today. So I think most of you probably know myself. I'm in the technical support team out here in EMEA. If you haven't had contact with me as yet, then you're probably going to have that privilege at some point in the future, I am sure. But I'm going to introduce Jerome. Jerome's a member of the professional services team. And what that team do is they take the products which we all know and love, and then customers will make a request or have a request to extend the product to do something beyond what it would do normally, off of a straight vanilla install. So that's where Jerome's expertise lies. And with that, there's anything else, anything more, I'm going to hand over to him. What we'd also like to do, oh, Paul, I see you're recording. Okay, so we're going to try and record the meeting just so that we can have these details so that we're able to share them out for anyone else that may be interested in integrating their Statseeker with another product which they may have. So, Jerome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Take it away.
Fantastic. Can everybody hear me? It looks like my mic is going.
Yeah,
Great.
I can hear you.
Yep. Perfect. All right. I have one and only one slide, just because I feel it's of worth. So very simple. Here's the tools I use. For my text editor, I use Sublime. For API testing, I use Postman. For my browser, I use Chrome or Chromium or some fork. It doesn't really matter. FileZilla for file transfer. Then the all-important docs page. Whoops. Back that up. Third-party applications we're going to be talking about today are ServiceNow, the Elk Stack, and Slack. And then the endpoints are API latest, indent 3. You'll see this a bit. CDT port, that's just interface information. And then groups, fields equals name and ID. If none of this makes sense right now, it's okay. We're going to talk over it, and it should make sense by the end of this meeting. So let me close this out. So first things first, I'm going to hop into my Statseeker instance, and I'm using API latest indent 3. So this is going to show us all of the different CDT or custom data types that we have available. You'll notice these are pretty familiar. If you're building reports or custom dashboards, you'll see these in the pull downs. So in this example, we're going to go over the interfaces because that's something that a lot of people like to use, and it's pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to go ahead and click again, API latest CDT port, custom data type port, describe, and then I'm going to have indent 3. So describe something that's very specific to our API endpoints that I'm familiar with. It goes over all of the different fields that we have, the descriptions, the values, and then the ways that you can return them. So for example, here's the different fields, the ID field, the name field, the device ID, so on and so forth. So I tend to, when I'm trying to build out API queries and things like that, I'll keep this page open on one side, and then that'll allow me to build out other ones based on the information here. So here's one that I've kind of built up. It looks like it's a lot, but it's really not. So the fields I want are the device name. So this goes back to the actual device itself. The name, this is the interface name, the transmit and receive utilization. So this is something that everybody should be much familiar with. These are all available within pull downs on all of our reportings. For the time filter, I'm going to do the start of today to now. And for the formats of the values that I want the average, the min, and the max. I could choose a group, and I can use just its normal string. I'm going to go over that later. And then for the device name filter, this is what I'm using to say, what is the specific query that I want? I want it to be like, in this example, the Chicago router. I'm not going to add any links. So I'm going to go ahead and test this out. You'll notice that it comes back down here at the bottom. And we'll see here, Here's my Chicago router, the name of the interface, the transmit utilization, the min, the max, and the average. So really quickly, from coming up from the latest, then your CDT, describe, indent 3 on a URL. It'll allow you to then pull all the different fields and formats that you want, and then in turn create the GET request that you need. And then from there, you can kind of post it into anywhere that you want. So that's kind of a really simple crash course on how to just build API queries. It's kind of ubiquitous. So I'm sure most people here know how to do that, but that's kind of my methodology. Some people may have other ones. Here's again an example of the group. You'll notice there's no CDT because it's not a custom data type. And the fields I want are the names and IDs. And really quickly, here's all my group names and then their IDs as well. So in an instance where I saw the IDs, I'd be able to pull that out as well. So that's some very simple API example stuff. Now we're going to do a really quick Slack example. So if I come in here to my demo, admin tool, and alerting. Maybe. Eesh. Thresholds, alerts. There we go. So you'll see here, I've got an alert. Actually, I need to go to my other one. This is my home device. Here we go. So here we've got a pretty simple example of a ping state. I'm just saying all, if it's up or it's down, all groups, anytime. And this is an example response that I've stored. I'll show how I got this, but I'll be using this later to test out the script that I made. Something that we have here on the professional services and support and sales side is a default script. Basically, it allows us to place the script in, and depending on what type of information it is, it'll create an alert, and then here in this process event section, you can do your own third-party integration. So in this specific example, we have a Slack case. So if I come here to my Slack instance, go to my apps, and app name, incoming webhooks. So I've got this example text here, hello world. So from this, I've kind of done a little mutilation, and I've got my own text payload here. So a Statseeker alert device, and I've got the event text and the event entity name. So these are common information that gets passed along in the logging. I'll go over this as well. Don't worry about it right now. And if I make my request, Statseeker alert with the device information, if it comes back okay, then we're going to log everything's fine, or we're going to log everything is not okay. This is the only bit of information that is customized outside of the default app. So we can send this out to you if you request. Pretty much the only part that's going to be gone is this part. And from here, everything else is just for the free and for the taking. And then from there, you'll be able to kind of see how it does it. So I created this. I uploaded it using FileZilla. If I come over here to my Statseeker box, put it in home Statseeker bin. That's its default location. Notice that all of the scripts that I have, they're in Python 3. They're all executable. The one we're doing is a Slack example. So here's that example that I had before, that text message. So when the alert gets created, it sends out a string of information, and then we take it, parse it, we do some data enrichment using our own APIs, and then we post it to that third party. So if I do an echo, you'll see it does 2 quick warnings. And if I open up my Slack machine, you'll see Statseeker alert ping state up, devices NS2. Now, if I go to base logs Python, and that's going to be in home Statseeker, so home Statseeker base logs Python log, that's where everything gets sent to. So here's the line that was sent, and then here's all the debugs that you get, and then here's the one I created for the successful entity where I logged the information. So this was a matter of what, 8 or 9 lines of code with a quick debugger, and really quickly I'm able to just create a Statseeker alert from inside Slack. So the first step again is creating an alert, run a custom script, give it the name, you can do the testing, its default location again, home Statseeker bin, make sure it's executable, and then we have the default logging system that logs things to base logs, Python logs. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? I know I talk kind of fast.
No, it's
Want me
clear
to go
enough.
over a specific screen? Okay.
Mhm.
So that's using the kind of scripting on one side. I've shown you how to create some API REST queries. And then we've got a couple other ways to do some integrations. Another way is here in our dashboards. So, whoops, leave that one. Here it is. So the dashboards are using Grafana. I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with it, but they allow you to use HTML tags. And because you can use HTML tags, you're allowed to use JavaScript tags. And so here's a couple simple examples. This one here on the left, just a very simple couple quick lines of JSON. We've got a third party that does some investigations on some MAC addresses. So if I put a MAC address in here, it tells me that this is Gigabyte Tech. This is just some machine I have back here at my house, and I just happen to know what that is. Then here on the other side, this took me a little bit of time. This actually goes into a test ServiceNow instance and pulls out all of my network incidents. And then I can go ahead and click here. And this is going to take me, to my dev ServiceNow instance. And it took me to that incident. And again, this is all dummy information. We've also done some integrations with this on the alerting side. So creating incidents if a device goes down, for example. So that's something else that we use with that another script. I'm sure you're aware if you have ServiceNow, this is highly customizable. So it's not as simple, and I wouldn't be able to just go over it that quickly as I did with Slack. But if you're familiar with your ServiceNow instance, it should be pretty easy. A couple other examples we have here are, because it's not just JavaScripts, we also support iframes and links. You can do things like, here is the International Space Station Earth viewing experiment, the live stream of that, some Maryland traffic, and some NOAA weather radios. These were all done very, very simply, just using iframe content in a mode HTML. And this was just copy paste from the International Space Station. So if you have some security cameras or something similar, you can do this as well. In this example, it's just a link, and it was automatically able to parse this out and create a streaming service. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that? The one thing I will note, specifically with the ServiceNow and some of these other systems, make sure that they have CORS enabled, cross-origin referencing. So if they don't have that, you're not going to be able to show it on another system. If you're not sure what that is, you should talk to your network admin or whoever is familiar with the applications that they have.
Sounds good.
Okay. So that's, does somebody have a question?
No?
No, I don't think so.
Is it only for open incidents, or can we update incidents when we have opened an incident for maybe slide goes down and coming up again? Can I add that to the same ticket that we can see that the line was coming back, or is it then a different second one?
Yeah, so you could have the ability to query and check if the incidents already exist. That would just be something that you could code yourself. On this specific table that I made here, I threw this together in like a couple hours and just made a really dumb. Here's the ability to how to do it. If you know how to do JavaScript, you can make sub functions within here to do whatever you like. So for example, here's a button that I have on this one, and it's doing a get to check and then filling out the information here. You could, in theory, create another table cell here that had a button that referenced these other ones as well. So another example that kind of does something like that, as far as doing some labeling. So with the scripting side as well, I should back up as well. So we have a default script that says, here's the enriched data, and then you can go out and do the gets and posts, puts, deletes, whatever you want with your third-party application. If you find that you either don't have enough time or it's too frustrating, we're more than happy to help. But straight out of the box, I mean, it's coding. It's whatever you want it to be, right? The answer is yes. If you wanted to do that, you could. Another example that I have, and this is my home network. So if any of you use any other type of product where a URL has a lot of the information and it's getting transferred through that way, through the variables, you'll be able to tie that in to a table or something like that using external URLs. So you'll notice here, this is my MAC IP tables. I'm looking for a specific IP address just because I know it's my home. There we go. So if I go ahead and click on this one, this is taking me to my home elk stack. So what it's doing is it's going to say, here's a dashboard that I had already created, and I'm just using this client variable that feeds through all of these different Logstash events. So I've got one for my firewall hits, I've got one for my bind results, bind cloud, and various queries. So with this one, I was able to do this by building out the dashboard here, building out how I wanted it, taking this URL up at the top, looking for this, which is the client IP address. So this little bit of information is the tie-in between the two systems, right? So this is the IP address that I was able to pull from this cell. And if I go in here, this is just a normal table. I've got multiple queries in it. For the IP address, I've gone ahead and rendered the value as a link. Open this one. And you'll notice they're exactly the same, except for instead of the IP address, I have the dollar bracket underscore underscore cell close bracket. And that information is found right here in the link. If you just highlight the information, that tells you where the variables are. So I'm using this specific cell's value, and then I'm referencing it in the URL and then opening up in a new tab. So if you've got other systems and things like that that can use that kind of information, you can tie it in that way as well. Similarly, I've got an external Mac up look at. This is the exact same system that I was using on the other side. You'll notice I'm pulling the information from here. And then also, if you want, you can also tie it into just other dashboards. So this is how you can link different dashboards, but it's not just dashboards that you can use. So we've provided a lot of flexibility within our system, especially with these new dashboards. Hopefully this has given you guys some semblance of a little bit of information about how to work it out. If you have any questions, or if you think this is a little too much and you just want it done, we can definitely help with that as well. We've got a couple minutes left. Is there any specific questions, maybe about this side of things, about how to create these links, how to get these through? I find using the tooltip, which is just the hover over, this is a good place to test out, making sure that you have the right information. So for example, this cell, I want to make sure it has the right information that I'm looking for. Did all that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
If you'll excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. It's still early here in California. Oh, that's a good cup. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put these endpoints in the chat window before I forget. I don't know what that is. And then everybody can have, what is all this? There's too much on my window.
Well, what we could do, if it's all right with you, we could share it on an email afterwards, sort of thing, so everyone's got
Perfect.
a copy of the scripts, if you're all right with that, and
Yeah.
the extra info as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, totally. And any of this didn't make sense, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. So as a consumer of APIs, and working for a lot of startup companies and small companies, I almost never point to documentation. This is one of the few exceptions where I will definitely always point people to the documentation. So from here, documentation. First and foremost, there's some wonderful videos that go over examples of how to make the various different panels. And then if you want some very specifics on the APIs, we've got all of it here with examples of different code. So here's Unix, Windows, curls. Here's Python, requests, Ruby. So a lot of this is very well documented here. So there's a lot of rope, and you can definitely hang yourself.
These are my customers, Jerome. I don't want them long.
If you're like me, you get yourself in a lot of trouble.
One thing I would add, the describe feature within the API on the website, that really does help if you don't know what a particular value is or variable that you see within Statseeker. So if you need to understand what it's actually representing, the description field in here I've found valuable and used it many occasions as to inform customers what a particular value represents. Yeah.
So when we're creating these CDTs, this description field, we try to, as much as possible, pull it from the actual vendor information or from the vendor MIB. So if we have a very specific custom CDT like Cisco's VPN or something, or Juniper Firewall, this description is what they give us, and then we just give it right back to you. So if you've worked in networking, logs don't lie. So this is kind of that. And it's just kind of a way to pass that information on. Close out all my random too many tabs that I do. What else is something that I could give? Here's a little fun advanced dashboard tip for the last couple of minutes for the guys who stayed on. Something that's really cool about using variables is if you're using a specific object type that is a custom CDT, like for example, this Juniper Firewall, it will automatically populate with the information types for devices and objects that respond to that information. So a good way to use that in the way that we do use it in the dashboard for Cisco VPNs is we have the Cisco VPN CDT object queried here, and it will automatically find all of the devices that are responding back to those SNMP MIBs. So you don't have to know which devices or which interfaces are responding to these specific CDT types. If you go in here into the variables and then just select it as an object, you'll notice down here, it shows me what those are. So this is the interface and then the count, the counter, I think it is. So that's kind of a nice little advanced tip. Do with it what you will. It's a nice little way to get dangerous.
That's perfect. Have any of you guys got any other questions? Well, we've got Jerome on. And if you can certainly come back to us with anything else afterwards, and as he says, we as well as giving the basic information to help you guys get started, there's Jerome's one of the guys that does this as this is his full-time job, taking care of extensions to Statseeker and additional functionality like this. So if there's anything you'd like us to do, just give Billy or I a call, and we'll do what we can to make it happen.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm sure we'll be calling you in the next season or so, I think. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for that, Jerome.
Awesome. And a minute under, so I like to keep it crisp and concise.
If you deliver your projects like you deliver your presentations, we're laughing. Always on time.
Excellent. Mm-hmm.
Try to be.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, thanks.
All right then.
Very helpful.
Take care.
Thanks, Jerome.